Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarai.
Amen.
Okay, good morning, Chevra. What a privilege to jump back into Likutei Moharan Torah Lamed Aleph b'siyata d'shmaya. Today's shir is sponsored as a schus for my humble self and my family, which is very, very kind, by Eli Walbram of 92ndnach.com. I'll add, it should also be a schus for him to begin studying Likutei Moharan daily, Be'ezus Hashem, wink wink. And sponsored by Zev Klein, Neshama Yeseiras parents, Rebkah, Bryndel, Bas Tzvi, Simcha, and Ya'akov ben Yishayio, the Neshama should have an aliyah. Also sponsored anonymously, B'schus Shidduchim for Klal Yisrael singles, Be'ezus Hashem. Everyone should have Yeshuas, and we should only hear good news with all of Klal Yisrael in the schus of our learning. Says the Heilige Rebbe, Schus Yagraleinu. We're jumping back in to the very end of the first part of Torah Lamed Aleph, which is Rabbi Nachman's own words. And we're learning, just not to do a whole recap, yesterday we did a pretty thorough review. We're learning about the cluster of traits that is necessary to be mashlim all the brachas that come down to the world in the energy of giving, as a result of somebody giving to someone else. Ultimately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the ultimate giver, giving to Klal Yisrael, giving to all of humanity, giving to existence, giving through existence. And that cluster of elements surrounds the concept of bris. And we learned about two brisin. There's the bris Ilah, Avram, and the bris Tata. And the bris Tata, the lower bris, which is Shmiras Halacha, is included within the bris Ilah, because the higher level always includes the lower level. And once a person accesses this concept of bris and is working on being both what Rabbi Nachman describes as a tzaddik as well as a lamdin, so that ultimately reveals the element of tzaddik. And then tzaddik be'emunasai, the inyan of tzaddik is connected to the concept of emunah, and faith is completed, and then ultimately yichya, that's able to channel down unbelievable life force, which we described as being the vowels, the nekudas that animate the letters of reality, which without the nekudas is just the matter without form, right? It's just the element of reality, but it's static, it's dead. Until we're able to infuse it with life, with meaning, with purpose, with consciousness, that's ultimately the goal of everything we're attempting to do. And it's all wrapped up. And when Habakkuk came and summed up the whole entire Jewish experience into the following thing, Bach Habakkuk ve'amidan al achas, v'tzadik be'emunasa yichya. Right? That element of emunah is the most important thing, because emunah is what's able to give us the consciousness necessary to live in a world that isn't dead, to live in a world that isn't weighed down and meaningless, purposeless. There's a narrative here that underlies everything. There's a story that's being told. And this whole experience had a beginning, it has a middle, and it will have an end, and that end is coming. And we're very close to that. But only a person who lives with the concept of bris, which is tzaddik, as well as the completion of emunah that's a result of bris, is able to live in a life where yichya, where they're able to channel the nefashos into the gufim, which is the nekudas into the oisiyos. And that's what we had learned yesterday. And then at the end of the shir, toward the end of the shir, we were learning about the concept of eating and the concept of food having a face, and living in a world where everything is alive, right? Where everything ought to be related to in a way of dignity and ought to be respected, not simply as things that are engaged with, but really personalities that can be related to. And that's a completely different world when a person is living in that way. The only way that a person can live in that way is when the letters of reality, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke into being, aren't simply static letters, but are rather elevated, animated, as a result of a person recognizing the nekudas within everything. And it changes a person's experience. Right? Just yesterday, as a result of the shir, when I was eating, I tried to have this in mind. It's easy to learn about, but it's really hard to actually do. Which means, I guess, to sit and to pause before we just consume something, to have a relationship with it. Yeah, you're going to eat it, right? So ultimately, you're consuming that thing, but there's a certain respect. Food has dignity, and therefore you have dignity when you eat. And it changes the whole experience. That's just food. That's one example. Because food ultimately is definitive, or emblematic, I should say, of all of a person's parnasa, like we learned. So Yikum Asher B'Ragleihem, right? All of a person's parnasa, which really means anything a person has, all of a person's possessions. There's a way of interacting with it, and that's something very, very special indeed. And again, so again, this just represents a whole worldview where a person sees not just lechem upon him, but parnasa upon him. And teva upon him, where nature has a face, has dignity, and ultimately all of life comes to life in the most remarkable way as a result of tzaddik be'emunasai yichya. Okay, now we're up to the Sabei D'Bei Atuna, where the Rebbe is going to put all of these concepts into the anecdote that we learned from the Gemara of the sages of Athens and their riddles that they posed to Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. And here we continue. V'zehu, we're on the bottom of page Mem Daled Amud Beis. The Rebbe says, V'zehu ma sheshalu Sabei D'Bei Atuna. This is what the Sabei D'Bei Atuna asked Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. And they told him, Islan Beira Bedabra. We have a well, a be'er, in the Dabra, in the desert. Come and help us bring it into the city. Says the Rebbe, Beira zabachinas baru mazain. Beira is bar. Bar is teven, is grain, right? It represents lechem. It represents parnasa. So they said what to do when a person's beira, which is the aspect of a person's parnasa, is bedabra. Bedabra is in the desert. It's far away. It's bachutz. It's outside. When a person's eating, and again, this is just one emblematic example, but a person's engagement with life is in a way of bachutz, which is when it isn't lechem upon him, when nothing has a face and everything is just a thing, and the element of relationship is not present because there's no being whose energy suffuses all of reality. So there's nothing to relate to in an I-thou way, right? In a relational way. It's just a matter of interacting with things in a very surface level way because everything is only surface. Nothing has any depth. So they said, Ay lelei lamasa. How do you bring a person's experience of eating, which is bachutz, how do you bring it lamasa, to the city, which is lifnim? How do you bring it into the home? This is reminiscent of Torah Yud when we spoke about har sadeh bayis, right? How do you bring something from far away, which is the mountain, down to the field, and then down ultimately to the home? So he brought this flax seed v'shadilahu, and they. Well, that's Isiperi. He said, bring this flax, v'shadilu, and they brought it, va'amaloin, and then he said, afshilu lichavle, turn it into a chain, turn it into a rope. So says the Rebbe, this is the answer. This is the answer to the question: how do you elevate eating from lechem that has no panim to lechem that has a panim? And the answer, of course, is what we learned is tzaddik b'emunasa yichya. When a person has this cluster of tzaddik, bris, emuna, and yichya, which is an element of chesed, brachas, bringing the fashas into the letters. So how is that merumas here? How is that hinted to in these words? Afshilu lichavle. So pa'eri is that Shabbos hamuna. Pa'eri, this is the element, flax is the element of Shabbos, which is the concept of emunah. Compares Rashi, like Rashi brings on the pasuk, es Hashem ha'emarta v'Hashem ha'emircha. Today you have affirmed Hashem as your God, and Hashem has affirmed you to be His people. And Rashi says over there, lashon pe'er v'shevach. This is a lashon of pe'er. This is a lashon of praise. Shana mufarim es HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we are praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'ana ma'aminim b'y, because we believe in Hashem v'oimrim Hashem echad. That's what it means. Es Hashem ha'emarta. Hayoim es Hashem ha'emarta. You have affirmed Hashem as your God. And this is the element of what Rashi calls a pe'er. It's the greatest pe'er when we say Hashem echad. And we praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, meaning we recognize that the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so all-pervasive, and that Hashem is so much all there is, the OTR, the only true reality, that on every single layer of existence, Hashem's unity may be found. And it's the ultimate pe'er, because that affirms what HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually is, which is Einoid Milvade, which is everything there is. So Memela, we see over here that the concept of Emunah is hinted to in the word Pe'er, and that's Pe'eri, that's Emunah. V'shadiluhu, and they sent it to him. Shadiluhu is bechinas bris, bechinas shakai, because the word shadi is the element of shakai. So far we have tzadik be'emunasai, because the emunah is pe'eri, and shadiluhu is the inyan of bris. So we're missing one element. That's the element of chesed. That's the element of emunah. Right? I'm sorry, not emunah. That's the element of brachas. Right? If you don't mind, thank you so much for joining us. If you could just turn the heat on. I thought I turned it on and it hasn't gone on yet. Thank you. Chavli is avas chesed. Chavli is the element of avas chesed. This is the element of the kindness, the mid of Avram Avinu. Shem is galim epuma da'ama that we said is revealed in the mouth of the bris, which is the element of Avram Avinu, roishlan imoilim, roishlam aminim, and that's why Avram Avinu, like we learned, is the mid of chesed. So how do we know of it? Chavli, right? You wanted to turn it into a rope. How do we know Chavli is an element of chesed? So he says it's a pasuk in Hosea, one of the most gorgeous pasukim there is. Bechavle Adam em shechem. Hashem says, I have drawn them with human cords, ba'avoisos ahava, with strings, with cords of love. So we find that a chevel is connected to ava, which is chesed. Hainu al yidei Shabbos ubris nisgala ava kanal. When you have the elements of Shabbos, which is the inyan of Pe'eri, Emunah, and Bris, which is the inyan of Shadilahu, so then is Gala Ahava. That brings the brachas into the world. What's the bracha? Is a chevel, because the pasuk says, Em shechem b'chevlei Adam em shechem b'avoisos ahava. Al yidei ahava ba'im lebechinas lechem apanim. And that's how you bring the bread, which is Beiri, beautiful, from the outside, from the desert, and you bring it into the city. Okay? Ad kan loshen Rabbeinu. That's basically Torah Lamed Aleph. And Reb Nosson here takes over. And Reb Nosson writes, Zois HaTorah nemra al pasuk ve'yasev elikim. This is this Torah was said on the pasuk ve'yasev elikim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them in a roundabout way. Ein hesiba ela suuda. K'di'isa b'medrash, and the medrash darshans on the word vayasev that it's a reference to suuda. Hainu b'chinas parnasa, which is the element of parnasa. Hainu b'chinas bar umazon, sheb'chinas beira kamavur la'el, which is itself hinted to in the aspect of lechem, right, and sustenance kamavur la'el, like we said earlier. But we did not merit to hear the full explanation of how all of the ideas and the concepts that Rabbi Nachman reveals in this particular thought cluster, that is Torah Lamed Aleph, are manifest and revealed in this particular pasuk, and we weren't zocha to hear that element. And then Reb Nosson says, Inyan malas hakisufin de kedusha, the element of holy yearning, which we said produces the nekudas, because nichsav avagam kolsa is what produces nafshi, and the element of nekudas hakesef, that the vowels, which are souls to the body of the letters, are a result of kesef being kisufin. That element of the greatness of yearning, I initially heard that revealed with greater length and greater explanation, with many other chidushim that were just not mentioned here at all, as well as all of the other elements that were mentioned in Torah Lamed Aleph up until this point, which was taken out of Rabbi Nachman's own notebook. He said there are so many other elements that are necessary to be able to understand this Torah in full. I heard each and every point in a slightly different way. So Reb Nosson says, I'm taking over here and I'm going to present Torah Lamed Aleph the way that I heard it, which is going to help you mashlim many of the nekudas that were just presented more piecemeal. We're going to learn it now in a different order and in a more fleshed out way. And here we really begin from the beginning, which is not really the beginning, because you're going to see he starts with the element of kisufin and all of this, and then we're going to see how that unfolds over the rest of Torah Lamed Aleph for the next 5 pages. 5 amudim, sides of a page. Okay, so here we begin. Says the Heilige Reb Nosson, Schusia Ganalina Val Kol Yisrael, Amen Va'amen. We're starting from the beginning again. Okay, so we have the basic ingredients, but now we're starting from the outset. Says the Heilige Rebbe, Zivugan v'hitztarfusan shala oisiyos hu al yedei nekudos. The bringing together of Hebrew letters and the permutating of the various letters of the Aleph Beis, which is what creates reality, like we learned in the SHIURIM prior, the concept of Sefer Yetzira and the SHIURIM, the 231 gates of being able to bring all the letters into contact with all the other letters. And Betzalel, who created the Mishkan, which is in the form of all of existence, needs to know all of the letters and how you bring them together. The only way to do that is through vowels. Because the vowel points are the movement of the letters. And without nekudas, it's just a clump of matter, but it doesn't have any form, right? It doesn't have any guiding consciousness. It's just dead. And that's why nekudas are correlated to the concept of a soul. Just like the soul is the life force of the human being and the vitality of the body. And every movement that a person makes, hakol hu al yedei nefesh, right? The ability for the body to move at all is just through the nefesh, because we see that when a person's soul leaves the body, it's kagayla. That's it. It cannot move. We can move it, but it can't move on its own. Ubilti nefesh hu kagaylam. Without the nefesh, it would just be mamish like a gaylam. It would just be right. Gelem is just matter, just pure physical matter. Raw material, just material, right? In exactly the same way, letters are dead. When you add vowels to the letters, it brings the letters to life. Because no letter would have any movement. You would not be able to pronounce the letter without the inclusion of vowel points below the letter, or in middle of the letter, or above the letter, which is a famous and beautiful Torah from the Rav on the three strata of reality that are hinted to in the three forms of nekudas that are underneath the letter, the nekudas that are in the letter, and the nekudas that are above the letter. Ayin sham rak al yedei nekudas hemisnei ayin. But as a result of the vowel points, the letters move. Al yedei nekudas nizdav given its sarfim ha'oisios. On account of the nekudas, the letters are able to be pronounced together. They join together, and we're able to bring form. We're able to bring form into the otherwise dead and lifeless matter of 3 letters. 4 letters, 5 letters, 6 letters, however many letters. Otherwise, it's just like a clump of dead bodies. And then all of a sudden, you put nekudas to it, and it becomes a symphony. It comes to life. Says the Heilige Rebbe, and this is Reb Nosson's bringing it to life. He really brings Torah Lamed Aleph, and he breathes life into it by fleshing it out. So he says, okay, what does that mean for me and you? So the Iker his Havas HaNefesh, the primary revelation of our Jewish soul, is because we just learned that nekudas are the life force of otherwise lifeless letters, and we know that nekudas are connected to yearning because nekudas hakesef, and nichsav avagam kolsa equals nafshi. That's what produces the soul. Says Reb Nosson, you want to come alive. You want to make sure that your life is vibrant. You need to be an idealist. You need to be yearning. You need to be a person who has hope. And when we are able to express our shtokukus ta Hashem, which is founded on the premise of the fact that there still is hope, otherwise I wouldn't feel any yearning, I would feel despair. When I'm able to swap out yush for a leiv nishbar, where there's nothing as whole as a broken heart. There's a Torah from the Gog UMagog. I think I posted it to my status yesterday. I was preparing, still designing the curriculum, and I was going through Gog UMagog and trying to find the pieces that are necessary to include from there. The Degel has the most incredible piece. The Degel says, about everything you're able to say, this is a good fill in the blank. This is a good pair of shoes. What do you mean by good pair of shoes? What good means in the category of shoes. It's good quality, right? This is a really good shade. This is a good red. What do you mean good? It's very vibrant, right? It's a good shade. This challah is really good. It's a good challah. It's like, okay, different people have different opinions. Some people like doughy challah. Some people like crusty challah. Some people like, but everything, when you say good about it, it means something specific to that. So it says the Machne Ephraim, it says the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, where the 5 Talmidim of Chanina Medaisa, one of whom, by the way, is Rabbi Shua Chananya, each, he was saying, find what's the best midah, right? What's the thing, midah, that a person should work on the most? And this one said Shachin Toiv, and this one said Chaver Toiv, and this one said, we're going to get to that in a minute, Ayin Toiv, right? The different Talmidim said different things, until one of them said, Leiv Toiv. And he said that, right? Shebechlal devarav is devreichen, right? He's the best one because in his words, everybody else's words are included. If you have a leiv tov, you have everything else. So the Machne Ephraim says, okay, what is a good heart? Because we said a good cup of coffee, right? Let's say is whatever it is, right? What a good challah. What is a good heart? Says the Machne Ephraim, it can only mean one thing. A good heart is a broken heart. That's what the Dagel says. Leiv Taiv, he says, is Shivra and Leiv. That's what a good heart is. Anybody can have a heart. To have a good heart is to have a humbled heart, an open heart, a yearning heart. That's a good heart. Isn't that amazing? That's the Dagel Machne Ephraim says, that's a Leiv Taiv. I see it on the shelf. It's calling me to try to find it and open it, but that's not right there usually in this SHIURIM. So we'll leave that for a different time. But that's what he says. Leiv Taiv is Shivran Leiv. Shivran Leiv, the Sfarim explain, is a heart that's full of Ishtokukus because it's not given up. If a person gives up hope, they're no longer yearning. But when a person feels Shivran Leiv, that means that a person lives with the conviction that what they want can still be attained. But they're far away from it. So they yearn for it. It says the Heilige Rebbe, Schusi Agar Aleinu. Idealism brings a person to life. Rav Kook writes the same thing. Rav Kook says that a person who doesn't have ideals is a dead person. Simple as it is. You want to know how alive a person is? How much are they yearning for? Because it is the yearning for a future goal that brings the present to life. This is the premise of a very, 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 very wonderful and deep book I'm sure everybody's read. And if you haven't, really, really highly recommended. And the book is called Man's Search for Meaning. A very famous book, Viktor Frankl. Logotherapy. A Yid with a Yiddish heart, who actually had some kind of correspondence with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's some story about that. I can't remember exactly right now. But his whole premise is that what got people through the horrors of Auschwitz was yearning for the continuation of a project that they had been working on, the putting back together of their life that they still really wanted. And he, again, I don't know if like this is a definitive study, but it's his own experience, is that what he saw is that the people who gave up died. The people who stopped yearning for a better future lost their life in the present. But the people who never gave up, the people who held on to their ideal, which over here is called Hishtakukus V'Kisufin, they had life in the present moment. So let's go back inside. Ve'ikar Hishavas HaNefesh, the primary manifestation and the cultivation of life and vitality and vibrancy in the present moment is the longing and yearning of a Jew after Hashem, that a person still believes, I could get close to Hashem. Right now I feel that I'm far, but I know that I can make it one day. I know that I can be a tzaddik. I know that I can work on this and overcome it more collectively. I know that Klal Yisrael can bring Mashiach. I know that the world has hope. Goes back to Torah Chaf Ches, Tikkun HaKlali, as opposed to Pegama Klali. Pegama Klali means, and that's Pegama Bris means, I give up hope. There's no covenant that I have with Hashem anymore. There's no purpose in even trying. The world has no meaning. The world has no face. The world has no dignity. Everything is meaningless, right? So all the Torahs connect. It's a consciousness. It's just really hard to put it into one word because it's so myriad, multifaceted that you need every Torah in Likutei Moharan that provides a different facet. Then when you take the whole thing as a whole, then you say, I get it. This is Mashiach consciousness. And if every Yid had this, forget Breslov, if every Yid lived with these values, Mashiach would be here already. That's the Torah from the Baal Shem HaKadosh. Mashiach is not a person per se. We believe that Mashiach is a person. It's Paskin and Rambam that way. Right? We believe there will be a person called a Mashiach. But the Baal Shem Tov made very clear that from the standpoint of Panimius, the Geula Klalis is a result of Geula Pratis. That's right. When every single Yid reveals their Nitzitz Mashiach, and that Lashon is Mefurish in the Svarim HaKadoshim, early Svarim, in the Dagal Amarinayim, ultimately from the Baal Shem, every Yid has a chelik of Mashiach inside of him. When all of us activate that chelik, that's the partzuf of Mashiach. That's Knesset Yisrael B'Tifarta. That's Harim Keren Yisrael Lamecha, Harim Keren Mashiachecha, like we're saying in Avinu Malkeinu. It's the same thing. Klal Yisrael is the Mashiach of the world. We, collectively as a nation, Ki ish echad b'leiv echad, our Mashiach. We just have to activate all of the different parts and then bring it together into this algorithmic collective consciousness. And then hopefully we'll have a tzaddik hadar, who leads the way. But it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And that's what's kept us alive all of these years, is yearning for Mashiach. That's what's kept the Jewish nation alive. Is va'af al pishis mameya im kol zeh achakale b'choyim sheyavai. Is b'yoyim ahu yi Hashem echad u'shmai echad. If we didn't have these beliefs, and if any one of us individually loses our faith that the world could be better, if we fall prey to the dark, evil and sardonic and malevolent despair and kriros of Amalek, we're finished. We're finished. And that's why the Rebbe, who was the quintessential Yid, came mamish, waged a war against despair. Waged war against it because he realized that despair is the single most precise expression of that which is directly contrasting to the Jewish spirit of hope. Because that's what it means to be a Yid, is to be alive. And to be alive is to have hope. And to have a hope is to have ideals. And a good heart is a broken heart. A heart not that gives up. A heart that longs. A heart that yearns. That's what a Leiv Toiv is. We have to teach that to our students. That piece will definitely go in the curriculum. What's a good heart? You want to have a good heart? Have a yearning heart. Have a big heart that prays for the world. That still has hope that the world could be fixed. That's called a good heart. That's a good heart. That's a heart with crispy crust and good warm challah, inside. That's a good heart. Yearning for a future goal brings the present to life. Every person in accordance with their madrega. Every person on their madrega yearns for just the next step up. From one pnim to the next makif. From one madrega, from one nekuda tachtoina of the Aleph, from one shayv to the next ratzai. Just the next. If you're a person who's filled with hope, if you're a person who does his spodidus every day, what is his spodidus? His spodidus is an expression of hope. It means I'm taking time out of my day to contemplate my personal ideal, to believe that it's possible, and to speak out my yearning before Hashem. Like we learned to remember, it's important not just to have the yearning, but to speak it out. Like the Rebbe told us. Then a person becomes a Bal Nefesh. Then a person's life is full of vitality. It isn't dead. Then the Oisius become filled with Nekudas. Then every Lechem is an aspect of Lechem upon him. There's a presence in life. Hashem has not forsaken the world. There's no Pagam bris. The bris is functioning. Hashem has a bris with us. Hashem has a bris with all of humanity. Hashem has a bris with all of existence. And we're mamish at the end. We're mamish, like that song goes, we're mamish at the very, very end. And now the greatest nisayon of all is to give up hope. Greatest nisayon. It's because the easiest thing to do today is to give up hope. Everybody's given up hope. Even people are still functioning on some level. You could tell they've given up. They don't believe that ceilings could be shattered, mamish. That we can collectively rise to a higher level. People are resigned to the current mitzias, and they say, "Mashaya, Hushayya." Ein chadash tachas Hashem's no, nothing really. Oh, what? Anytime anybody wants to be a little bit idealistic, you can't change the system. You can't fight City Hall. This is the way we do things. Nothing will ever change. The educational system is broken. All this stuff that you hear from people, everybody's fetching, but very few people are saying, "Hey, here's a solution. We can mamish do it. We can mamish." You know how much that's worth? An idealistic person could change the whole universe. Mamish could change the whole universe. But the nisayon is so big. The nisayon of giving up is so big on ourselves, befrat, on Klal Yisrael bichlal, on Eretz Yisrael, on humanity. It's such a nisayon. This, my friends, this is the nisayon. Rabbi Nachman said that before the coming of Mashiach, there's going to be a war. And he says the war is going to be called Gog UMagog. But he said it is not a physical war. It will be a war of emunah. That's what the Rebbe said. And he foretold this when the world was still quite religious and really generally believed in God of some form or another. And he said there's coming epikaros gadav ha'olam. There's coming a great spirit of heresy, great spirit of secularism. And over here we don't just mean religious versus non-religious. It's really hope versus despair. That's what it is. That's really what it is. And Munah in our day and age means do you still believe that everything could be fixed? Because the nisayon pulling us in the direction of Amalek, sucking us into devastating despair, and maybe worst of all, the cynicism, the rejecting out of hand every new initiative because there's no hope. So what's the point? We need to combat that with the emunah that's full of hope and idealism. Al yidei kisufim elu nasa nefesh. This is what gives us life. Like the pasuk says in Tehillim, nichsef avagam kolsa equals nafshi. Hainu, in other words, Masha ani nichsef v'kola achar Hashem yisbarach. This that I'm longing and pining to be connected to Hashem. I'm longing and pining to see a reality that's saturated with Hashem's presence. Ta'ir eretz michveidecha. That's all I want. That's all I want. That's the only thing that I want. The more that I want to see every human being aware of their own greatness. I'm chosen because I want every human being to know that the human race is chosen. I want to see every person operating out of their tselem Elokim. Like, the more that a person yearns for this, which is nichsaf avigam kolsa, mizeh ba'atzmai nasa nafshi. That produces nefesh. Now here the Rebbe says one of the wildest things in the whole sefer. I mean, this is just not to be believed. Listen to this one. This is what the Gemara says in Beya. On the pasuk, Shavas vayinafash. At the end of Vayichulu, at the end of Vishamru, the name is also Shavas Shavas Adaris and Bersalim Beini Vim and Esalim. Ki Sheish Zamas Hashem is the Shvam Vesaretz Uvayim Hashvi'i Shavas vayinafash. Say Chazal. What's vayinafash? Split up the word. Vav Yud Nafash. Kivan Shavas. Once Shabbos leaves, Shavas, right, which means Shabbos is over. Vayi nafash, vay, say Chazal, the Gemara in Beya. Woe is to us, of the nefesh we've lost our Neshama Yeseira. Okay, that's how Chazal darsh in the words Shabbos, vayi nafash. Kivan Shabbos, once Shabbos is over, vayi nafash, which means woe, vay, ay vay, nafash. We've lost our Neshama Yeseira. So the Rebbe over here is asking, a question. It's an unspoken question. What's the obvious question here? When should we say this Vashamru then? Should say it by Havdalah. Because it makes reference to the fact that Shabbos is over and we lost our nefesh. What are you saying it Friday night just as Shabbos is coming in, at Mariv? Listen to this. Hainu, says the Heilige Rebbe, through the mouth and the pen of Reb Nosson. Shebetchilas HaShabbos, at the outset of Shabbos Kodesh, shetzarch lekabel nefesh Yeseira. Now we're ready to receive an extra infusion of soul. This is mamish, a classic. Because in this moment of Shabbos entering, we now need the manifestation of what's called the Neshama Yeseira. We remember that we're going to lose the Neshama Yeseira when Sunday comes around and it's Matzah Shabbos. So va'ayimrim va'yinafash va'y of the nefesh. So Friday night we say va'yinafash because we remember that as Shabbos is leaving, we're going to lose the nefesh. Which nefesh? What do you mean, the Neshama Yeseira? You don't have the Neshama Yeseira. Says the Rebbe. When we begin to yearn after the loss of the Neshama Yeseira, from this that we're longing after it, this itself is what creates the Neshama Yeseira, which is the craziest paradox. Because you're yearning for it, because it's going to get lost, that's how you have it. Pele Plaim. Pile Plaim. And the implications are incredible. Because it affirms, again, that all of reality is here. It's our subjective experience. You believe you have a Neshama Yeseira so much so that you already anticipate being profoundly saddened as a result of it leaving, then you have it. Because it's the yearning that created it. Amazing thing. To the extent that a person cares about their Neshama Yeseira, that's the extent to which they have a Neshama Yeseira. Because the Neshama Yeseira is a result of a person believing that they have it, wanting it, and already beginning to yearn for it even while you have it, because it's the yearning for it that creates it. That's that paradoxical dynamic. Relationship husband and wife, parents and children. Is it that the relationship is so strong, therefore when you're apart you long for it? Or is it because there's a sense of yearning that's what creates the relationship? Reb Shlomo used to say, it's one thing to yearn for things when you don't have them. Can we still yearn for things even when we still have them? Not just distance makes the heart grow fonder, which is true. Can we introduce that element of distance even when we're together? So that I, in my own mind, understand there are so many deeper levels to my spouse that I just haven't gotten to know yet. There's a neshama there. There's a deep, infinite neshama there. Can I yearn for the ones that I love when I'm standing right next to them? I haven't lost them. They're here. But there's an inyan of yearning, there's an inyan of kisufin. That's what creates what's called the Ishvi Isha Shechina Shriya B'neihem, is a result of the belief that Shechina Shriya B'neihem. And that manifests into this reality a brand new facet of existence. That's why we have to say Shabbos Vayinafash at the outset of Shabbos, because it's the yearning for the Neshama Yeseira that you don't even yet have. That is what creates the Neshama Yeseira that makes us so sad when Shabbos leaves. Pili Plaim. And that's the aspect of Nekudas HaKesef, the sequence of silver. So now we're learning silver is kesef, but kesef is also the inyan of kisufin, longing, and that's what creates the nekudas, which are the animating life force that sit under the letters and in the letters and above the letters to bring them to life. Hainu, which means shalidei kisufin, through the yearning nasa nekudas, this produces the vowel point she'im b'chinas nefesh, which are the element of nefesh. Hainu shalidei mashu nichsav u'mishtoikik ladavar im l'toiv im l'rachas v'shalom. Through our yearning for a certain manifestation of experience in this world, if it's good, that'll bring good energy into the world. If it's not good, that'll bring negative energy. Chas v'shalom. Azai l'fya kisufin nasa nekudas. In accordance with our yearnings, that creates the vowel points for nistayrin ha'oisios shev'seich hadavar shu nichsav, and the letters within the thing for which he is longing come to life. Ki kol davar yesh lo oisios. Everything in reality has letters. It's the letters that create the guf of everything in reality. But letters on their own are dead. It's a bechina of malchus, disconnected from Kutchabrichu. It's lifeless. When there's period between Kutchabrichu and Shchinte, malchus is peh. This is just the letters, which is pure constriction, limitation, going back to Torah Dalid. But it has there's no life in it. Kutchabrichu is the inyan of the nekudas, right? In relative terms, without getting more technical. That's the life. That's the neshama that comes down into the guf. That's yichud kutchabrichu shchinte. We're trying to infuse the guf of the shchina, which is the body of reality, with light, with kutchabrichu. Life force. Malchus alone, the letters alone, going back to Sameach Bechelkoi, which we interpreted as Yichud Kutchabrichu Shchinte, right? The Chelik alone, the Kli alone, without Yaakov Avinu saying Yeshli Kol, which is Yichud Kutchabrichu Shchinte, the limitation alone, Ein Lem Shum Tzir B'li Nekudas. It has no, it's dead, it's constricted, limited, it doesn't move. But in accordance with idealism, in accordance with confidence, which we spoke about in a previous year, in accordance with the person really believing that they could, then your reality moves. The question isn't whether you can get there, the question is whether you want it. If you want it, you'll get there. And it's not even a question of whether you want it, it's a question of do you believe you can do it. If you believe you can do it, you'll want it. And if you want it, you'll make it. And it's not even a question of if you believe you can do it. It's a question is, do you believe in God? It's really what it is. If you believe in Hashem, then you believe that you're living here for a reason. You believe that mamash you can do it. If you believe you can do it, you'll want to do it. If you want to do it, you'll do it. Hainu imhu nichsav l'davar toiv, when a person yearns for something good. I'll just go a line back. Shein bechinas nevesh shemekablam idea kisufim. Right, the letters will receive that life force. Hainu. So this means to say imhu nichsav l'davar toiv. If a person yearns for something good, nasim akisufa nefesh kedosha. A holy nefesh comes into the world. V'nasa nekudas bechinas nekudas hakesef, and then the nekudas become sequin. A silver sequence, which is the aspect of nekudas, vowels that are produced as a result of yearning, and then that pure just clump of matter, of material, of dross, of physicality, is all of a sudden nitztairu. It has its siur, it has its selim, it has a form. And then it becomes a vessel to receive goodness. But the opposite is also true. If a person yearns for negativity, which is a result of a deepening of a person's cynicism, so that Memela Hutra Ritzua, right, and all the doorways, Habalatami Paischenloi, all the doors are open, and a person just begins to yearn for lower and lower and lower levels of existence. That's like the anti, sort of like the anti-hope is hope of despair, right, where a person is so given up on the concept of an Olam Haba that they just now really invest in Olam Hazeh, but it's not hope. It's weiter, it's deeper levels of despair. It's hope to Sitra Achra, yearning to Sitra Achra. Shemechinas Nekudas, when it's Stara Oisius, when it's a Kli L'Kabel Ra, Chas V'Shalom, and then it becomes a vessel and a receptacle for negative energy. Kimi Pi Elyon Lo Seitzei Rois V'Atoiv. As we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give the world dictated in a certain way. Hashem created the world and gave it to us. Hashemayim Shemayim Lashem. Va'aretz Nasa L'Bnei Adam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts life before us, and He says, it will be what you make it. That's called Anhaga of Zeir Amdin. That's called Anhagas HaMishpat. That's called Midah Keneged Midah. That's called Re'ei Anoichi Noisan L'Fneichem Hayayim Bracha Uklala. Right? B'charta B'chaim. That Hashem says, choose life. That's our reality. Kimi ite loy seitze haroyis v'atoiv. Rak kol echad of yimashu hu mitztar va'oise kli l'kabel toiv v'rachas v'shalom ha'idea kisufim v'shtoike kushaloi. Each person in accordance with their actions, which are themselves conditioned by their beliefs, which themselves are conditioned by their society or their culture or their education or their parent or their upbringing, childhood, right? And that's our generation really being able to trace things back to the influence of others and then have compassion and empathy instead of judgment. And that's something that we've also spent a lot of time working on in previous Torahs. That's the whole Gilui of Pnimius of our generation, not to look at the symptoms, but to look at the actual core, which is oftentimes buried in the locus of someone else's consciousness as opposed to a person's own negativity. And that's the whole world of therapy and everything like that. But ultimately, it's Midah Keneged Midah. If a person is mitzar va'oise kli l'kabel toiva rachas v'shalom idea kisufin v'ishtoike kushalai who al yedei said nasa nefesh b'chinas nekudas. In accordance with what we want, that's what we'll get. Period. The whole question is, yeah, but I want it, but I'm still not able to do it. Right? So then there are blockages. Then a person that's where avodah comes in. But the first thing that we need to do is to help people get in touch with that part of them that still has hope and that still really wants. Because I think one of the philosophers said, a strong enough why will enable us to overcome anyhow. If you have a strong enough why, so then any challenges, you'll be able to get through it. But often what we first do is look at all the challenges. That's crazy. That's running into the running to the battlefield without a weapon. First you need your weapon. The weapon is your why. Which means that it's our obligation as parents and educators, which is all of us, them, in one way or another, and good friends, chaver taif, good friend, is to help other people get in touch with that part of them that Taka still wants, that still believes they can do it. And then to focus on magnifying that. And the obstacles are real. Everybody wants to do what's right. Even on a practical, physical level, everybody wants to exercise. Who doesn't want to exercise? Who doesn't want to have a healthy body? Everybody wants that. Zi'irun inun, very few are the people that actually do that, right? Who doesn't want to eat healthy? I'm just giving examples. Who doesn't want to meditate every day, and have some peace of mind? Everybody wants these things. Nobody does them, right? I mean, some people do them, but very few people actually do them. Okay, that's called you're a human being, and there's a struggle. But if you can get in touch with that part of you that at least idealistically wants health, that's step one. That's step one. That's step one. That's called finding the Nekuda Taiva. And in the context of Torah and Aleph, it isn't just a point of goodness. That means find the vowel within the person. Find their leiv taiv. Find a place within themselves that is yearning for something, even though on the outside they may look so settled and I don't need anything and I'm fine and I don't care about anything. Okay, that's just on the surface. Every person cares. Every person cares. Just have to find a way, like the shamir worm, to tunnel in until you can cut open the bricks, like we learned in previous Torahs, and reveal from deep within the Lev ha'evan, the Lev basar, that actually still that wants to be holy. Wants to be holy. Then, in accordance with a person's kisuf and ishtoikakos, then we'll have a nefesh. Then a person's at least alive. Are there still challenges? Sure. Tamid. That's the kind of Adam la'amal yulad. A person was born to toil and to struggle. A person's caught in that tension their whole life. But at least we have the weapon that we need to fight. And then life starts to rearrange itself. If you want it badly enough, then eventually you'll get it. Might take time. It might take a lot of dead ends. It might take a lot of frustration. But eventually you'll get it. As long as you don't give up. Because the only certainty of failure is a person who gives up. That's the only certainty of failure. If a person doesn't give up, they may succeed, they may not succeed. If a person gives up, they will 100% not succeed. Period. Simple as it is. Ein shem yish b'olam klal. It sounds like a very simple thing. But in the context of Torah Lamed Aleph, you pop the hood on hope and you realize that it's really life. It's really the essence of faith. It's really the essence of everything. And then it will either be what a person wants, either l'tayv or lehepech. It will either be chas v'shalom, the opposite of good, or a person, as a result of the upgrading of their ideals and what they care about and what they want, all of a sudden their whole life changes, their whole value system changes. Everything's different. And I believe, again, this is my hope, this is my idealism, I believe that we can change our culture. I'm talking about from all Orthodox culture. I believe we can change it. I really believe that our youth could be activated and they could be trained to yearn for greater things. I believe what's cool will no longer be what's the most lowly and foolish and degraded. I believe that Be'ezras Hashem soon we'll come up with a way together to change the culture so deeply so that what is cool will be what's cool in Asia, which is consciousness and meditation and health and physical strength and dignity. Mamish. Well, why can't we have that here? Why can't we have an army of Yidden who are activated? It's far more than keeping our kids engaged and we don't want people going off the derech. It's much more than that. That's my dream. An enlightened army of healthy people. Healthy physically, healthy emotionally, healthy spiritually. Equipped to be able to bring light to the world, not in some vague notion of tikkun olam, in a very specific sense, to teach the world emunah. I believe that the state of Israel could become a global platform for consciousness. I believe that Am Yisrael could all return to that place, and we could all play a role in upgrading ourselves collectively. And resetting our value system and returning to the essence of the Jewish spirit of Baishanim Rachman and Baishanim Goyim Lechasadim. What kind of fool am I to believe this? A fool with a little bit of emunah. Because on the surface, you've lost before you've tried. I mean, how are you going to change anything? I believe I'll change things. I believe it. I believe we'll change things. When I say we, I don't just mean the chevra in the room. I mean chevra who are listening. And it's like an international network. I'm not just talking about the people who listen to Likutei Moharan Amud. I'm talking people who are connected to the R of the Baal Shem Tov. People who are connected to the R of the Gula. We need to believe that it's true. We cannot afford to give in to even a shemetz of discouragement and despair. We need to remember what Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, when am I coming? When this consciousness spreads. And to believe that we can transform Am Yisrael into a genuine art, well, first for ourselves, but an ar lagoyim, to project that message of the Baal Shem Tov hachutza, and to bring the world back into Hashem's arms, in that element of Bayom Hahu Yihya, Yud Hey, and then Yud Hey, Hashem Echad U'Shmai Echad, Be'ezus Hashem, L'chaim, L'chaim, L'chaim. Amen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, amazing, incredible day.
על כל נשימה שאני